You're trash. You know that, right? Just another punk from the East Side, born to be a statistic." The words hit like stones. Judge Alistair Cromwell's gavel cracks against the polished wood, the sound an explosion in the cavernous courtroom. Kalen Washington stands tall, 18 years old. His shoulders are squared, a defiant fortress against the tidal wave of contempt pouring from the bench. The courtroom is dead silent, every eye locked on the young man in the crisp, but clearly not expensive, button-down shirt. Before we dive into this insane story of corruption and courage, do me a favor and smash that subscribe button. You are not going to want to miss what happens when one kid decides he's had enough. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever been judged unfairly before you even opened your mouth? The judge leans forward, his face a mask of smug certainty, a predator savoring the fear of his prey. "I've seen 1,000 of you, every single one. Attitude problem, no discipline. Probably no father in the picture to teach you how to be a man." His finger, bony and pale, stabs the air. "Am I wrong? Where is dear old Dad, anyway? Drunk in a ditch? Locked up where he belongs?" The courtroom air thickens, charged with a malice so potent you could taste it. But Kalen doesn't flinch. His gaze, clear and unwavering, remains locked on the judge. "May I call him, Your Honor?" A smirk spreads across Judge Cromwell's lips, a cruel, ugly thing. "Be my guest. Let's see if he even picks up." With deliberate, measured movements, Kalen pulls a worn smartphone from his pocket. The entire room watches, a collective held breath, as he taps the screen and lifts the phone to his ear. The silence stretches thin and fragile. "Hey, Dad." Kalen's voice is impossibly steady. "I'm here at the Port Sterling Courthouse. Judge Cromwell seems to think you dropped the ball raising me. He's got some questions for you about where you are." A beat of silence. "He'd like to see you. Courtroom 4B. How soon can you be here?" Who in the hell is on the other end of that line? What kind of man could possibly turn this tide of raw judicial power? Just hours earlier, that day had dawned with the promise of triumph. Kalen Washington walked into the Port Sterling Federal Courthouse, a masterpiece of engineering cradled in his arms. It was a custom-built hexa-rotor drone, sleek and black, fitted with a sophisticated water sampling and analysis unit. His ticket to the regional STEM scholarship. His proof that a kid from the East Side was more than a statistic. The metal detector screamed. Officer Miller, a man whose gut preceded him by a good 6 inches, steps forward, his eyes narrowing into suspicious slits. "Whoa there, what the hell is that thing?" He snatches the drone from Kalen's hands before he can utter a word. "It's a water analysis drone, sir," Kalen says, his voice a paradigm of calm he does not feel. "I'm scheduled to present my findings to the Chesapeake Environmental Commission today." Miller grunts, turning the device over roughly. The delicate sampling arm scrapes against his belt buckle. "Looks like a damn bomb to me." "I have all the documentation," Kalen says, keeping his voice perfectly level, a skill learned young on the unforgiving streets of his neighborhood. He reaches slowly, deliberately, toward his backpack. "Hands up! Hands where I can see 'em!" Miller's shout echoes through the marble lobby, heads snapping in their direction. Kalen freezes, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. His hands go up. This is how it happens. One misunderstanding. One assumption. "Got a suspicious device," Miller barks into his radio. "Subject is uncooperative." 2 more guards materialize, their expressions grim. Out of the corner of his eye, Kalen sees a figure watching from the periphery. Judge Alistair Cromwell, robes hanging on his arm, a look of detached, almost amused interest on his face. He crosses his arms, making no move to intervene, a king watching a peasant being hassled in his court. I'm just here for my 11 o'clock presentation, Kalen repeats, the words tasting like ash. Judge Cromwell finally glides over, his gaze flicking from Kalen's face to the drone and back again, his expression curdling with disdain. Shouldn't you be in school, boy? I have an excused absence, sir. I'm presenting to the Environmental Commission. The Environmental Commission? In my courthouse? The disbelief in his tone is a calculated insult. Yes, sir. Room 302 at 11:00 a.m. Dr. Anya Sharma is expecting me. The judge glances at the ornate clock on the wall. We'll just see about that. Bring him to my courtroom, first. The guards push Kalen forward, his meticulously calibrated drone now held like a piece of contraband. As they walk, Kalen watches a white college student with a laptop bag and a tube full of architectural plans sail through security, with a cheerful nod from the guards. He pulls out his phone, texting his father. Delayed at security. Might be late. The reply is instant. What's wrong? Kalen starts to type, to explain the injustice, the humiliation. Then he stops. His dad had enough on his plate, just extra checks. All good. He can hear fragments of the conversation between Cromwell and Miller up ahead. Always an excuse. Teach him a lesson. Know his place by the time I'm done with him. Kalen's spine straightens. His jaw sets. A cold, hard resolve crystallizes in his gut. This was never about the drone. The question was, what was it really about? What did a powerful federal judge truly want with a high school senior's science project? In the chilling silence of Judge Cromwell's empty courtroom, Kalen stands before the towering bench. His drone, his months of work, sits in pieces on the prosecution's table, disassembled with brutish carelessness. Explain to me again, Judge Cromwell says, not bothering to look up from his phone, what this contraption is supposed to do. It's a water contamination analysis drone, Your Honor, Kalen says, his voice a steady, low anchor in the swirling sea of his anger. It collects and analyzes water samples for specific neurotoxins. I've been mapping the industrial runoff into the river, focusing on the water supply in low-income neighborhoods. The judge tosses Kalen's neatly printed research papers onto the floor without a glance. And why, pray tell? Would you bring it here? The Chesapeake Environmental Commission holds its monthly meeting here. I was invited by Dr. Sharma to present my findings. I'm the keynote student speaker. Cromwell makes a show of scrolling through his phone. Dr. Sharma confirms a meeting. She says nothing about keynote students. A knot of ice forms in Kalen's stomach. The confirmation email was sent to all committee members last Tuesday. Are you telling me how to run my courthouse? The judge's voice drops, becoming dangerously soft. No, sir. I'm simply providing the information you asked for. Cromwell rises, a specter in black. He stalks around the bench, looming over Kalen, his shadow swallowing him whole. Let me tell you something. I have sat on this bench for 22 years. I have heard every lie, every story, every pathetic excuse for failure you can imagine. I understand, but no interruptions. His hand slams down on the table, a sound like a gunshot. Pieces of Kalen's drone jump and scatter. A custom-machined sensor, the heart of the analysis unit, skitters across the floor and smashes against the wall. Kalen watches, a part of his own heart breaking with it. Sir, that's months of research, irreplaceable data. Research? Cromwell lets out a short, barking laugh. Is that what we're calling it? Where did a kid like you get the parts for this? Who really built it? I designed and built it myself. The parts were funded by a grant from the Maryland STEM Alliance. The judge's jaw tightens, a muscle twitching in his cheek. A likely story. Let me be perfectly clear. This building is a pillar of federal authority, not your high school science fair. He picks up a delicate circuit board, holding it between his thumb and forefinger as if it were a dead cockroach. "This device will be held for a full security inspection. We can't have unknown electronics interfering with courthouse systems." "And my presentation?" "If the committee confirms your little story, and if this device is deemed safe, you'll get it back." Cromwell's smile is a razor slash. Eventually, Kalen stares at the wreckage of his project. The data stored on its drive was more than just numbers. It was the silent scream of his community, proof of the poison they were forced to drink every day. It was evidence of an injustice so profound it had become invisible. "May I have a receipt for my confiscated property, Your Honor?" The judge's smile flickers, just for a second. "Getting clever, are we? Been watching law shows on TV?" He turns away. "You can wait in the hall." Will Kalen's work, the only hope for his neighborhood, be utterly destroyed before he can even share it? Kalen paces the hallway, a caged animal. The clock on the wall is a merciless torturer, each tick a hammer blow against his chances. 10:45. His presentation starts in 15 minutes. A security guard watches him with bored indifference, posted to ensure he doesn't go anywhere near room 302. Then, a lifeline. Dr. Anya Sharma, a brilliant environmental scientist with kind eyes and a shock of silver in her dark hair, spots him from down the hall. "Kalen, there you are. Why aren't you setting up? We're about to start." "Judge Cromwell confiscated my drone, Dr. Sharma. He said it's a security risk." Her eyebrows shoot toward her hairline. "A security risk? That's the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. It's a student project. I vetted it myself." She takes his arm. "Come on, we're going to sort this out." They re-enter the courtroom. The judge is on a personal call, laughing, and holds up a single finger to make them wait. Kalen observes the subtle shift in Cromwell's posture as he ends the call and sees Dr. Sharma. He sits up straighter, his tone becoming more formal, the street thug act replaced by one of judicial authority. "Judge Cromwell," Dr. Sharma begins, her voice firm but respectful. "I believe there's been a significant misunderstanding. Kalen Washington is our invited presenter. His research is groundbreaking." The judge offers a condescending smile. "Doctor, this young man brought an unauthorized, undocumented electronic device into a federal building. That requires a thorough investigation. It's a water monitoring drone that I have personally reviewed and approved. It poses no threat." "And did you run a background check on him?" Cromwell asks, his voice sharp, pointed. "On his family? Do you have any idea where he's from?" Heat floods Kalen's face. He feels like a specimen under a microscope. Dr. Sharma shifts, clearly uncomfortable. "He is one of the most brilliant students I have ever mentored. His character is impeccable." "That doesn't answer my question," Cromwell snaps. He turns his cold eyes back to Kalen. "Where exactly are you from, Mr. Washington?" "I was born and raised in Port Sterling, sir, on the east side." The judge makes a small, dismissive sound in his throat, a noise of confirmation. "Ah, the drone will remain in evidence until our technicians can fully inspect it. However," he nods magnanimously to Dr. Sharma, "you may take personal responsibility for him, and he can attend the meeting, without his device, of course." "But his entire presentation, all his data is on the drone's drive," Dr. Sharma protests. "Then perhaps he should have planned better," Cromwell says, his voice rising. "Perhaps he shouldn't have brought suspicious equipment into my courthouse. Consider it a valuable life lesson in preparedness." He gestures towards the door. "Now, I believe you have a meeting to attend." Kalen's hands clench into fists at his sides, his knuckles white. "May I at least have my presentation slides? They're on my thumb drive in my backpack." Cromwell's thin smile returns. "The backpack is being held for inspection along with the drone." He leans back in his chair. Run along now. And Mr. Washington, he adds, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Next time, learn your place before you walk through my doors. Sonum. His heart hammering against his ribs, Kalen follows a fuming Dr. Sharma into the commission's meeting room. 12 distinguished faces around a long mahogany table turn to look at them. The air is thick with expectation. The weight of their gazes feels like a physical force pressing down on him. My apologies for the delay, Dr. Sharma announces. We've encountered an unexpected logistical issue. Kalen steps forward, every ounce of his being screaming with humiliation and rage. He forces it down, transforming it into a cold, hard fuel. He takes a deep breath. I apologize, he begins, his voice clear and steady, a shocking contrast to the fire in his chest. My project, a water analysis drone, and all of my presentation materials have been confiscated by Judge Cromwell. A wave of whispers ripples through the room. Kalen can see the pity on some faces, the cool judgment on others. He sees a man in a tailored suit in the back row shake his head and scribble something in a notebook. How in God's name was he going to pull this off now? Empty-handed, under the skeptical gaze of the most important environmental panel in the state, Kalen takes a breath, centering himself. He plunges in. My project is designed to identify and map the concentration of specific industrial neurotoxins, lead, mercury, and arsenic compounds in the water systems of Port Sterling. He speaks from memory, from the heart. His voice, once quiet, grows in power and conviction with every sentence. For the last 6 months, I deployed my drone to collect samples from 157 different locations. The data reveals a terrifying pattern. The levels of these neurotoxins are, on average, 5 times higher in the predominantly minority communities of the East Side than they are in the affluent neighborhoods of West Hills. Despite the complete lack of charts or graphs, the committee members are leaning forward, captivated. Kalen grabs a marker and begins sketching on a large white pad, his hands moving with fluid precision. He draws the river, the industrial parks, the flow of the currents. He diagrams his collection methodology, his double-blind testing protocols, his statistical analysis. I then cross-referenced these contamination spikes with public health records, he continues, drawing another diagram linking water toxicity levels to hospital admissions. The data shows a direct, undeniable correlation between the highest toxin levels and the highest rates of pediatric neurological disorders, learning disabilities, and emergency room visits for respiratory failure. He pauses, letting the weight of his words settle in the silent room. The Clean Water Act is supposed to protect all citizens equally. My data shows that in Port Sterling it is being enforced selectively, creating environmental sacrifice zones based on race and income. Dr. Sharma watches, a look of profound pride on her face, as Kalen turns a disaster into a tour de force. When he finally falls silent, the room erupts in applause. Remarkable work, young man, says the committee chair, Dr. Lawson. Absolutely remarkable, especially given the circumstances. Where did you say your project is now? Judge Cromwell has it, Kalen answers, choosing his words with care. He's holding it for security inspection. Dr. Lawson's brow furrows. That is highly irregular. We will be making inquiries. In the meantime, these findings are explosive. They deserve a much wider audience. Would you be willing to present this at the national conference in D.C. next month? Relief and gratitude wash over Kalen, a warm wave extinguishing some of the burning anger. I would be honored, sir. We're at the halfway point, and the tension is suffocating. If you're feeling Kalen's frustration, hit that like button to show your support. What would you do in his position? Would you give up, or would you fight back harder? Drop your thoughts below. As the meeting adjourns, Kalen excuses himself. In the sterile silence of a bathroom stall, he leans his head against the cool metal, the adrenaline finally crashing. His hands are shaking. He pulls out his phone, hits his dad's number. Voicemail. Dad, something happened. Judge Cromwell took my drone. He said some things. He stops, the words catching in his throat. He doesn't want to sound weak. I think I handled it, but I could really use your advice. Call me. Dr. Sharma is waiting for him. You were incredible, Kalen. I have never in my life seen such poise under that kind of pressure. Thank you. Do you think there's any chance I can get it back today? Let's go find out, she says, her expression grim. They return to Cromwell's courtroom. The judge is hearing a series of minor traffic violations. He sees them enter but deliberately ignores them, making them wait. Kalen watches, a silent observer of the judge's brand of justice. A well-dressed white businessman who ran a red light gets a patient lecture and a minimal fine. A young Latina mother with a broken tail light gets a barrage of hostile questions and the maximum penalty. The pattern is sickeningly clear. Finally, after nearly an hour, the courtroom empties. Judge Cromwell acknowledges them with a weary sigh. Still here, Mr. Washington? Yes, sir. My presentation is complete. I'd like to retrieve my property. Not possible, the judge says flatly. Our security team has a protocol. The inspection isn't complete. Dr. Sharma steps forward. Judge, with all due respect, that drone contains months of irreplaceable scientific data. Kalen needs it for his work. He should have thought of that before he brought an unauthorized device into a federal building, Cromwell retorts, his eyes glinting. Kalen meets his gaze, a silent battle of wills across the empty courtroom. When can I expect it to be returned, sir? When we are satisfied it poses no threat, the judge says with a dismissive wave. Could be days, could be weeks, could be never. Kalen feels a strange calm settle over him. In that moment he makes a silent vow. He will not be broken. He will not be dismissed. He thanks the judge with a politeness that is its own form of defiance, turns on his heel, and walks out. Once in the hallway, he makes another call, not to his father, to a different number. Uncle Ben, it's Cale. I need some legal advice. It's about illegal property confiscation by a federal judge. His uncle's voice, calm and reassuring, comes through the line. Tell me everything, son. Don't leave out a single detail. Oh my, who is Uncle Ben? And what kind of legal fire is he about to rain down on Judge Cromwell's courthouse? The next morning at school, Kalen's mind is 1,000,000 miles away, replaying every infuriating moment. His chemistry teacher, Mr. Davies, a fiery advocate for his students, pulls him aside. Kalen, I just got off the phone with Dr. Sharma. What in the hell happened yesterday? Kalen recounts the story, sticking to the facts, his voice devoid of the emotion churning in his gut. Mr. Davies's face grows darker with every word. That son of a bitch. Cromwell had no legal grounds to seize your property without probable cause. Have you told your father? Left him a couple of messages. He's at a national security summit in Brussels all week. Hard to reach. Well, don't you dare give up, Mr. Davies says, his hand on Kalen's shoulder. The STEM Alliance is still expecting your submission for the scholarship. You're the front-runner. I'd have to rebuild the entire drone from scratch, Kalen says, the thought exhausting him. The data is gone. At lunch, his phone buzzes, a text from a blocked number. Urgent. Your drone is on the disposal docket for tomorrow, so row 800. Security protocol for unclaimed hazardous materials. This is insane. A friend inside. Kalen's blood runs cold. Disposal. They were going to destroy it. 6 months of work. The proof. The only hope his community had. Gone. He tries his father's secure line again. Straight to a pre-recorded government voicemail. After the final bell, Kalen is back at the courthouse. A new guard, younger and more officious, blocks his way. "I need to speak with Judge Cromwell," Kalen says, his voice tight. "Judge is gone for the day. Courthouse is closing. This is an emergency. My property is scheduled to be destroyed tomorrow morning." The guard shrugs. A perfect picture of bureaucratic apathy. "Nothing I can do about it, kid." Kalen spots Officer Miller, the one who first grabbed his drone, heading for the exit. "Officer Miller, sir, a moment." Miller turns, his expression sour. "What now?" "My drone. They're going to destroy it tomorrow. It has irreplaceable research on it. You can't let them do that." "Judge's orders," Miller says with a smirk. "Maybe next time you'll think twice before bringing your toys where they don't belong." "Can I at least get the data drive? It's a small blue card. It'll take 10 seconds. No unauthorized access to items and secure evidence. You know the rules." Miller turns and walks away. "Learn your lesson, kid. Move on." Fighting a wave of hot, suffocating frustration, Kalen steps outside into the cool evening air. He calls his Uncle Ben again. "They're destroying it, tomorrow morning, and I can't get a hold of my dad." "Okay, listen to me, Kalen." His uncle's voice is sharp, focused. "Document everything. Write down every name, every time, exactly what was said. I'm on my way to my office. I'm making some calls." That night, Kalen's garage is a whirlwind of frantic activity. He works with feverish intensity, surrounded by spare parts and schematics, trying to recreate a shadow of his drone. His mother stands in the doorway, her face etched with worry. "Kalen, honey, maybe you should just let this go. It's not worth all this trouble." "It is, Mom," he says, not looking up from the delicate task of soldering a wire. "This isn't about my drone anymore." "Then what is it about?" He pauses, setting the soldering iron down. He looks at his mother, his eyes burning with a new, terrifying clarity. "When Judge Cromwell took my drone, he didn't just take a piece of equipment. He tried to bury the data that proves the water in our neighborhood, the water coming out of our taps, is being systematically poisoned, and the courthouse he presides over is doing nothing to stop it." His mother's eyes widen. "You think he knows? You think this is deliberate?" "I don't know," Kalen says, picking up the wires again. "But I'm damn sure going to find out." What kind of calls is a civil rights attorney like Uncle Ben making in the middle of the night? And will they be enough to stop the destruction of the truth? Dawn has barely broken when Kalen arrives at the courthouse. He stands on the steps, a lone figure in the pale morning light, clutching a sheaf of papers his uncle had couriered to him at 3 a.m., affidavits, grant documentation, proof of ownership. Judge Cromwell arrives, his confident stride faltering for a split second when he sees Kalen waiting for him. "Mr. Washington, you are nothing if not persistent." "Yes, sir," Kalen says, stepping forward. "I have notarized documentation proving my project's scientific purpose and a formal request for its immediate return before its scheduled disposal this morning." Cromwell gives the papers a contemptuous glance. "File it with the clerk's office. I have a full docket." He tries to brush past. Kalen moves with him, a respectful but immovable object. "Your Honor, I have been reliably informed that my property will be destroyed within the hour. If that happens without due process, I will be forced to file a federal lawsuit and escalate this matter publicly." Cromwell's eyes narrow to slits of cold fury. "Is that a threat, young man?" "No, sir. It is a statement of my rights." The judge steps in close, his voice a low hiss. "Let me educate you. You have no rights here except for the ones I grant you. I decide what happens in this building." "This building belongs to the people, Your Honor. It's a symbol of justice, not a private kingdom." A dark flush creeps up Cromwell's neck. "You need a lesson in respect for authority. Officer Miller?" Miller approaches from the security desk. Yes, Your Honor? Mr. Washington is creating a disturbance on federal property. Please escort him out. I'm standing on a public sidewalk holding legal documents, Kalen says, his voice ringing with a calm that infuriates the judge even further. Cromwell points a trembling finger at the papers in Kalen's hand. Those documents look fraudulent to me. They could be forged. Confiscate them as evidence. Miller hesitates. He's a bully. But this feels different. This feels illegal. Sir, you heard me. They're potential evidence in a new crime, attempting to defraud the court. Kalen holds the documents tight. These are notarized copies, sir. My uncle has the originals. The judge leans in, his face inches from Kalen's. You think you're so smart? You think your little papers and your lawyer uncle are going to save you? You are nothing. Remember that. Just then, a courthouse administrator comes rushing out. Judge Cromwell, there's a call for you on your private line. They said it's a matter of national security. The judge blanches. He takes one last hateful look at Kalen and follows the administrator inside. This isn't over. Kalen turns to Miller, who looks deeply uneasy. I just want my property back before it's gone forever. Miller glances around, then lowers his voice. Look, kid, just let it go. You're poking a bear. Why are you following his orders when you know they're wrong? Kalen asks quietly. Miller's face falls. I've got 2 years left till my pension. I've got a family. Don't make me choose. Is your pension worth more than the health of an entire community? Kalen asks. Is it worth destroying evidence of corporate malfeasance? Miller has no answer. His silence is more damning than any confession. Who made that urgent, high-priority call to Judge Cromwell? And what storm is about to break over the Port Sterling courthouse? It's afternoon. Kalen is still there, a silent sentinel on a bench outside Cromwell's courtroom. He refuses to leave. A few lawyers shoot him curious looks. One, a woman in her 40s with intelligent, weary eyes, finally stops. You've been here since I arrived this morning. What's going on? I'm trying to recover my property before Judge Cromwell has it illegally destroyed. She sits down. I'm Julia Chen, from the Public Defender's Office. Tell me about it. Kalen explains everything, showing her the copies of his documents. She shakes her head slowly. Cromwell, he has a reputation for this kind of judicial overreach, but this is extreme. Let me make a call. While she's gone, Kalen's phone vibrates. A text from Uncle Ben. Hold tight. The cavalry is on the way. Julia returns, her expression grave. Court administration confirms it. Your drone was just moved to the sub-level disposal unit. We might have minutes. They race down to the basement. A hulking security officer bars their way into the disposal room. Authorized personnel only. This young man's property is being disposed of without a court order, Julia argues. I have my orders, the officer says, his face a granite wall. Through the wired glass of the door window, Kalen sees it. His drone, sitting on a metal table, looking broken and forlorn. That's it. It's right there. Please, sir. That's irreplaceable research. The officer steps in front of the window, blocking the view. You need to step back now, or I'll have you both removed from the premises. Julia pulls Kalen away. It's no good. We need a judge's order, an emergency stay. As they turn, the elevator doors hiss open and Judge Cromwell emerges. Miss Chen, I see you're slumming it with the local troublemakers today. Your Honor, this is outrageous. This young man's property is being destroyed. I'm filing for an emergency stay right now. Cromwell laughs, a sound devoid of all humor. Save the ink. I personally deemed that device a security hazard. My word is final. Based on what evidence? Julia challenges, her voice sharp. My courtroom. My rules, Cromwell sneers. He gestures to the guard. Escort them out, and Mr. Washington is hereby banned from this building. If he sets foot in here again, arrest him for trespassing. Kalen steps forward, his voice shaking with a rage he can no longer contain. I have done nothing but be respectful. I have followed every rule. Why are you doing this? Judge Cromwell looks him dead in the eye, his face a mask of cold, absolute power. Because I can, and because some people need to be taught their place in the world. Julia grabs Kalen's arm. Don't, she whispers. Not here. We'll find another way. As the guard shoves them toward the exit, Kalen looks back. He sees Judge Cromwell enter the disposal room. And through the closing door, he sees the judge pick up a heavy steel hammer. Oh my God, Kalen whispers, the air punched from his lungs. He's going to smash it himself. Julia's face hardens into a mask of cold fury. Okay, now we know. This is personal. This is time to call in the big guns. With his life's work seconds from being obliterated, what is Kalen's final desperate move? Outside on the courthouse steps, Kalen is a blur of motion, pacing like a caged tiger. Julia is on her phone, calling every judge in the district, trying to get an emergency injunction. It's no good, she says, hanging up in frustration. No one is available, and frankly, no one wants to cross Cromwell. Kalen's phone rings. The screen displays a secure, encrypted number he knows by heart. His father. Finally. Dad, they're destroying it. Cromwell is in the room with a hammer right now. I know, son. I've been briefed, the voice on the other end says, impossibly calm. Put me on speaker. Kalen fumbles with the phone, confused. Julia watches, her expression a mixture of pity and curiosity. A new voice fills the air, a voice accustomed to command, a voice that radiates an authority that has nothing to do with judicial robes. This is General Marcus Washington. To whom am I speaking? Julia blinks. Julia Chen, sir. Public Defender's Office. Your son's project is... I have the situation report, Ms. Chen. Now listen carefully. Escort my son back inside. Demand to see Judge Cromwell. If you meet any resistance, tell security they need to call this number immediately. He recites a Pentagon priority extension. Julia stares at the phone, then at Kalen, her mind reeling. We'll try, General. They walk back inside. The guards at security move to block them. I told you, kid, you're banned. Julia steps in front of Kalen. We need to see Judge Cromwell, now. And if you try to stop us, you are instructed to call this number. She holds out the phone. The head of security looks at the number, scoffs, then his eyes widen. He makes the call. His posture transforms from arrogant to ramrod straight. Yes, sir. Right away, General. My apologies, sir. He hangs up, his face pale. He turns to Kalen and Julia, his demeanor now utterly deferential. Please, go right ahead. The judge's chambers are this way. As they walk down the silent marble corridor, Kalen whispers, What just happened? Julia shakes her head, completely bewildered. Who in God's name is your father? He's a general, in the army, works at the Pentagon. They arrive at Cromwell's chambers. The clerk tries to stop them, but Julia simply shows him the phone. The clerk vanishes inside, then reappears a moment later, looking shaken. The judge he'll see you now. They enter. Judge Cromwell is standing behind his desk, red-faced and furious. On the desk sits Kalen's drone, dented but intact. A heavy hammer lies next to it. This is harassment, the judge sputters. I have made my decision. Julia steps forward. Your Honor, we were instructed to have you call this number if you refuse to immediately return Mr. Washington's property. Cromwell snatches the phone. What bureaucratic pencil pusher do you think? He dials the number. This is Judge Alistair Cromwell. Who is this? The transformation is instantaneous and absolute. The color drains from the judge's face. His arrogance evaporates, replaced by a stark, primal fear. Yes, General, I understand. But the device was deemed— Yes, sir, I see, right away. He hands the phone back to Julia, his hand trembling violently. Mr. Washington, he says, his voice a choked whisper, your property will be returned to you, immediately. In its original condition, Kalen adds, his voice cold as ice, with all of its data intact. Cromwell nods, unable to look him in the eye. As they turn to leave with the drone, Kalen's phone rings again. It's his father. He answers on speaker. Is the situation resolved, son? Yes, Dad, thank you. Good. Now, do me a favor. Put Judge Cromwell on the line. I'll be in Port Sterling tomorrow, and I'd like a word with him. Julia stares at Kalen, dawning comprehension in her eyes. Judge Cromwell, looking like a man walking to his own execution, approaches and takes the phone Kalen holds out. This is Judge Cromwell. The voice that comes from the phone is quiet, but it carries the weight of armies. It is the voice of absolute, unquestionable power. Judge Cromwell, this is General of the Army Marcus Washington, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I will be in your courthouse tomorrow morning at 0900 hours to discuss your professional conduct, your treatment of a United States citizen, and what appears to be a pattern of gross judicial misconduct. Clear your schedule. Cromwell sways on his feet, nearly dropping the phone. Yes, Mr. Chairman, of course. He hands the phone back to Kalen and practically flees into his chambers. In the hallway, Julia lets out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Your father is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs? Kalen nods. He doesn't like people to make a fuss about it. Julia looks down at the drone in his arms. So, is this really just about water quality? Yes, it's about 6 months of data proving that the industries poisoning the East Side are getting a free pass from the courthouse, Kalen says, running a hand over the dented casing. And it seems the neighborhoods with the poisoned water correspond exactly to the districts where Judge Cromwell hands out his most draconian sentences. Julia's eyes widen as the final, horrifying piece of the puzzle clicks into place. My God, Kalen, you didn't just find evidence of environmental racism, you stumbled onto the link between that and judicial corruption. I just wanted the kids in my neighborhood to have clean water to drink, Kalen says, carefully cradling the drone. I never thought I'd have to take down a federal judge to do it. Oh, how will Judge Alistair Cromwell possibly survive a face-to-face meeting with the most powerful military officer in the world? The sun rises on a city buzzing with nervous energy. News vans are camped outside the courthouse, alerted by an anonymous tip that a very high-level government official is making an unscheduled visit. Inside his chambers, Judge Cromwell is a mess, sweating through his shirt as he screams into his phone. Congressman, you promised me your protection. I've ruled in your favor on every zoning variance, every environmental waiver for the last 10 years. This is my career. He slams the phone down. His clerk enters, looking terrified. Sir, there are military police in the lobby. Military police? Cromwell chokes out. Washington isn't playing around. He fumbles with his robes, a pathetic attempt to cloak himself in a dignity he no longer possesses. Meanwhile, Kalen and his father arrive through a secure rear entrance, flanked by 2 stone-faced MPs. General Washington is an imposing figure, radiating a quiet intensity that makes the air around him feel charged. Are you all right, son? He asks, his voice low. I am now, Kalen says. I didn't mean for it to get this big. You stood your ground against a bully and defended the truth. I've never been prouder. The general puts a firm hand on his son's shoulder. But this is about more than just your drone now. It's about the oath we both took. Yours to the scientific method, mine to the Constitution. They enter a conference room where Julia Chen is waiting with a team from the Judge Advocate General's Corps, the military's legal arm. On the wall are massive maps of Port Sterling, with certain neighborhoods glowing red. Ms. Chen has provided us with a damning portfolio, a JAG officer tells the general. A clear, multi-year pattern of discriminatory rulings from Judge Cromwell. Julia nods, and it lines up perfectly with Kalen's water contamination data. The neighborhoods Cromwell hits the hardest are the exact same ones where environmental regulations are mysteriously never enforced. General Washington studies the maps. And these red zones also happen to be where Congressman Davenport has been acquiring massive amounts of real estate through shell corporations. Another officer confirms it. The congressman's companies buy the land cheap after Cromwell's rulings, and the lack of environmental enforcement make the areas undesirable. Then they lobby for urban renewal grants to clean it up with taxpayer money and sell it for a massive profit. Kalen looks at his drone, sitting on the conference table. So that's why he wanted to destroy it. It wasn't just hiding the pollution. My data was the key that connected the sick kids in my neighborhood to the corruption in his courthouse and the greed in Congress. The general turns to his son. You uncovered a cancer, Kalen. Your science project exposed a rot that goes to the very top. A knock on the door. Judge Cromwell enters, his own lawyer trailing behind him like a nervous shadow. The temperature in the room plummets. General Washington, Cromwell begins, his voice strained. This entire theatrical production seems a bit excessive for a simple misunderstanding over a high school science project. The general doesn't move, doesn't offer a hand. Judge, we are not here to discuss my son's project. We are here to discuss your career of judicial malfeasance, which that project inadvertently brought to light. Please, sit. For the next hour, the JAG officers present an avalanche of evidence. Discriminatory sentencing data. Bank records showing unexplained deposits into offshore accounts. Phone logs linking Cromwell's chambers directly to Congressman Davenport's office just before key environmental cases were dismissed. It is a systematic, brutal dissection of a corrupt man's career. Cromwell's lawyer objects, but his protests grow weaker and weaker, drowned by the sheer weight of the evidence. This is nothing but a politically motivated witch hunt. Cromwell finally erupts, his face purple. The data is not political, Judge, the general replies, his voice as cold and hard as steel. We have reviewed 22 years of your rulings. Perhaps you can explain why a defendant from the East Side is 60% more likely to receive the maximum sentence than a defendant from West Hills for the exact same crime. He gestures to a chart. Or perhaps you can explain these payments from a holding company owned by Congressman Davenport's brother-in-law. Cromwell looks to his lawyer, but the man is staring at the table, defeated. I want to cooperate, the judge whispers, the words tasting like poison. I want a deal. His lawyer stands. My client will be making no further statements at this time. General Washington nods to an officer who slides a document across the table. Judge Cromwell, this is a formal notice of investigation from the Department of Defense, in conjunction with the Department of Justice. As this corruption directly impacts federal contracts and military families stationed in the area, we have jurisdiction. You are being placed on immediate administrative leave. The Judicial Ethics Committee is convening an emergency session this afternoon. I suggest you prepare your statement. As Cromwell and his lawyer are escorted out, the general turns to his son. Your drone revealed a nexus of corruption we've suspected for years but could never prove. You gave us the key. Kalen looks at the dented piece of equipment that started it all. I just wanted to help my neighborhood. And you have, his father assures him. Your data is now Exhibit A in a federal investigation that's going to change this city forever. By evening, the news is a firestorm. Judge Cromwell suspended. Congressman Davenport under federal investigation. The stock of Davenport's primary development company has been frozen. It all started, the reporters say, when a judge tried to destroy a high school student's science project. At home, Kalen watches the news with his parents. Why did he target me like that? He asks, the question still nagging at him. He could have just ignored me. Because data is a threat to men who build their power on lies, his father answers. Your map of poisoned water was also a map of his crimes. You backed him into a corner, son. You didn't give him a choice. The general's secure phone rings. He listens, his expression hardening. Davenport is on television, calling this a military coup, an attack on our democracy. He's demanding a congressional hearing. Is it? Kalen asks. Justice is never an attack on democracy, son, the general says. It's the ultimate defense of it, and those who pervert justice are the real enemies of the state. The next morning, Kalen presents his findings again, this time to a joint session of the Environmental Commission and officials from the EPA. His drone is repaired, fully functional. Military police stand discreetly at the doors. He displays his maps, his charts, his data. The room is silent, the implications of his research finally understood in their terrifying entirety. Mr. Washington, the head of the EPA says, the committee would like to fund an immediate citywide expansion of your water monitoring system. As they leave, Julia Chen runs up to them. The judge's lawyer just called. Cromwell knows it's over. He's offering to testify against Congressman Davenport and everyone else involved. He's ready to name every name. The dominoes were beginning to fall. Kalen's simple science project had just lit a fuse. The only question now was how big the explosion would be. 1 week later. The judicial ethics hearing is a media circus. Judge Cromwell, stripped of his robes and his power, looks small and pathetic at the defense table. Congressman Davenport has already fled the country, a federal warrant issued for his arrest. Kalen's research is presented first. His drone sits on a table, a silent testament to the truth. Screens around the room show his data, the undeniable correlation between pollution, disease, and the perversion of justice. The committee chairman is blunt. The data, which has been independently verified by MIT and Johns Hopkins, is unassailable. Next, JAG investigators lay out the entire criminal conspiracy. The backroom deals, the bribes, the shell companies, the ruined lives. Cromwell takes the stand, his voice a monotone, as he details 2 decades of corruption, implicating dozens of city officials, corporate executives, and lobbyists. He had traded the health of children for wealth and power. During a break, Kalen overhears 2 reporters talking. That kid, his science project brought down a whole damn criminal empire. Can you believe it? When it's over, the committee's decision is swift and unanimous. Immediate and permanent removal from the bench, and a recommendation for criminal prosecution. Outside, Kalen's father addresses the swarm of cameras. Today is not a victory, but a solemn reminder that the systems designed to protect us are only as strong as the integrity of the people who run them. When we allow the poison of corruption to seep into our institutions, we poison the very soul of our nation. Later that evening, the news is staggering. The EPA has launched investigations in 15 other cities where Davenport's companies operate. 4 other federal judges have taken indefinite leaves of absence. The corrupt network was bigger, deeper, and more rotten than anyone had imagined. Will it really change anything? Kalen asks his father as they watch the coverage. For my neighborhood? The general nods. The EPA is fast-tracking a Superfund designation for the East Side. Davenport's frozen assets will pay for the cleanup. And the Pentagon is adopting your drone's technology as a new standard for monitoring environmental safety around our bases worldwide. A notification pops up on Kaylin's phone. A full scholarship to Stanford to pursue a joint degree in environmental engineering and constitutional law. They want me to help them build a new program, he says, amazed. A national environmental justice initiative. From a science project to federal policy, his father says, a rare, wide smile spreading across his face. That is how real change is made. One person refuses to back down. 3 months later, Kaylin is in Washington, D.C., the keynote speaker at the National Conference on Environmental Justice. His drone, now a symbol of a movement, is displayed beside him. Environmental justice is not an abstract concept, he tells the packed auditorium of scientists, lawyers, and activists. It's the simple question of whose children get to drink clean water and whose do not. In the front row, his father sits next to Julia Chen, who now heads a newly formed Civil Rights and Environmental Justice Task Force at the Department of Justice. After his speech, Kaylin is on a panel. The director of the EPA calls his work the single most important catalyst for environmental policy reform in the 21st century. A DOJ official adds, following the evidence uncovered by Mr. Washington, we have opened 37 criminal investigations into judicial and political corruption across 9 states. After the conference, Kaylin and his father walk along the National Mall. Davenport was apprehended in the Cayman Islands, the general tells him. He'll be back to face trial. Cromwell's plea deal got him 15 years, but his testimony has been invaluable. He brought the whole rotten temple down with him. And the neighborhood? Kaylin asks. The cleanup is ahead of schedule. The settlement is funding a new community hospital specializing in neurological and respiratory care. The change felt real, tangible. But Kaylin still had a question. Will it last? That's up to us, his father says. Systems don't fix themselves. They must be constantly monitored, constantly challenged by people like you who refuse to accept the way things are. 1 year later, Kaylin walks the streets of his old neighborhood. It's transformed. New parks bloom where abandoned factories once stood. Gleaming water monitoring stations, the mass-produced version of his drone, stand at every corner, their data streamed live to a public website. He walks to the courthouse, the place where his nightmare began. A new plaque in the lobby dedicates the building to equal justice under law. He passes through security with a respectful nod from the guards. In the main hall, an exhibit showcases the story of the Port Sterling scandal. His original dented drone sits in a glass case at the center. Julia Chen meets him there. Your story, she tells him, has inspired citizen scientist movements in over 50 cities. People are using data to hold power accountable. She smiles. And Judge Cromwell? His community service, ironically, is managing the water quality database for the East Side. In a conference room, they meet with his father and community leaders. A health official presents a new report. Childhood asthma rates are down 40%. Neurological disorder diagnoses in newborns have plummeted. It was never just about a drone. It was about justice. It was about who matters. After the meeting, Kaylin and his father walk to his old high school. A new wing has been built. The Washington Center for Science and Civic Action. Inside, teenagers are hunched over computers, analyzing data, preparing their own reports to present to the city council. A young girl, no older than 15, shows Kaylin her project, a device that detects lead paint in low-income housing. You know, the general says quietly, Cromwell told me during his deposition that he never believed one person could change anything, especially not some kid from the wrong side of the tracks. It wasn't just me, Kaylin says, watching the young girl work with a fierce intensity he recognized in himself. It was everyone who refused to stay silent after the first crack appeared in the wall. As the sun sets, casting a golden glow over a neighborhood reborn, Kaylin finally understands. The system isn't a fortress, it's a structure. And sometimes all it takes is one person with one piece of irrefutable truth to find the load-bearing wall and push. Your place isn't where people tell you it is. Your place is where you decide to make your stand. Kaylin's fight is over, but there are thousands more just like it happening every day. If this story moved you, share it. Let it be a beacon for someone else who feels silenced. Subscribe for more stories that matter, because true change starts when we refuse to stay quiet. What's the one lesson you'll take away from this? Comment below, and let's keep the conversation going.